of Education. Here today with Co-Chair Carol Beckerly. Madam Auditor, welcome. Please call the roll, ma'am.
Chair Ragland,
Here.
Co-Chair Beckerly,
Here.
Mr. Grant,
Here.
Mr. Vajon, virtually,
Present virtually.
Ms. Adair, Mr. Jordan, Mr. Daniel.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the committee, should have reviewed the minutes from the Audit and Accountability Committee meeting on June 24. Are there any questions or concerns about those minutes? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Okay, so moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Madam Auditor, please call the roll.
Chair Ragland,
Yes.
Vice Chair Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Grant,
Yes.
and Mr. Daniel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Item number 1 on the agenda is committee operations. We're going to review the charter for the Audit and Accountability Committee. Madam Auditor, Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Before we start, if you don't mind, I'd like to recognize Mr. David James.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll let Dr. Dixon.
Yes, absolutely. Welcome, Dr. Dixon, and welcome, Dr. James. Dr. Dixon, please go ahead and introduce him.
Well, thank you. So I have the privilege of introducing our new Deputy Superintendent of Operations. He comes to our district with lots of experience in operations. He is a former superintendent of a large urban school district, Akron Public Schools, and just come with a wealth of knowledge and expertise. And I am so excited to have him as a member of the Columbus City Schools team. I know that our operation team is going to be stronger because of his expertise and us working together as we become a national model in urban education. So it's just exciting to have someone with his expertise coming in and helping lift this team along with the others. We've had Maurice Odom at the helm, and Maurice has done a tremendous job. And Maurice is still going to be on the team with us. And so Dr. James is just another person who is going to add to the dynamic team of the people in the operations side of the organization. So thank you and welcome. And today is his second day with us. And he has been all in since yesterday.
Thank you very much for your attendance here, Dr. James. Welcome to the Audit and Accountability Committee. Welcome to the City of Columbus.
Yes.
Glad to have you here and looking forward to our work together, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Madam Auditor.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is the Audit and Accountability Committee Charter review. This was reviewed at a couple of meetings, and at the last meeting in June, I believe, I was charged with sitting down with legal to meet with legal to see if they had any recommendations or any concerns as far as the uniqueness of Ohio, because the charter review that I based this on, thank you. The charter review that I based this on is from the Institute of Internal Auditors, and they are an international organization. We want to make sure that our charter met any unique criteria for the state of Ohio. So we had that conversation, and what you have before you are the few changes that legal recommended, and we did make those changes. We also incorporated all the changes and the feedback from the June meeting from the committee. So with that, I believe you've had this for a week in advance. If you have any additional questions be more than happy to answer those for you at this point in time.
Thank you for that. And we have had this for quite some time and been doing some really good work. And thank you. I want to take this time to thank you, Madam Co-Chair, for your efforts in working on this charter. I still believe that we are one of the first committees. I believe Policy Review may have beaten us to the punch, but we're second in line to promote our charter to the Board of Education. Are there any questions around the last bit of work that was accomplished by the auditor as well as our Chief Legal Counsel, Mr. Barnes, and their teams?
No, I think that, I agree with everything you said, and I think we're ready to go.
Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to move this Audit and Accountability Committee Governance Charter to the General Board of Education for a vote of support?
So moved.
Second it.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Madam Auditor, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Daniel,
Yes.
Chair Ragland,
Yes.
and the motion carries.
Thank you, and thank you again, committee members, including you, Mr. Vajon, who's here with us virtually, for your effort on this charter. We look forward to the work we're going to continue to do together. Next on our agenda is the IT Risk Assessment Report. Madam Auditor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I think it might have been back in January. It had to be 2020 because we met in person, and we had a conversation about having a IT risk assessment done, and there was discussion about working with Schneider Downs, who we've worked with in the past, and they know our operations pretty well. So we did engage Schneider Downs this spring, and they have worked really hard and worked really well with our team to accomplish this risk assessment. I just like to, while I have the floor, to thank the team from Schneider Downs and to thank our IT partners and to thank the other district employees who worked to make this this product final. And I also like to thank Dion Brown from my office, who spearheaded the effort and worked really close coordinating everything. So what we would like to do is to have Dion introduce the team from Schneider and then give our CIO an opportunity to respond to anything that she wants to respond to. So at this time, I will turn it over to Dion for a brief introduction.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Good afternoon. I would like to introduce the Schneider Downs team that conducted the IT risk assessment for our office, starting with Mr. Tony Elise. He is the Director of Risk Advisory Services, and Mr. Sean Thomas, IT Manager for Risk Advisory Services for Schneider Downs. With that being said, I will turn it over to Schneider Downs team to provide a high-level overview of the IT risk assessment and planned audit report. Thank you. The floor is yours, Sean.
Thanks, Dion. I believe everyone has a copy of the report. I can pull it up if it would help, to show everyone. But I'd like to thank everybody for being here with us today. Thank the district for this opportunity to work with you again, and also reiterate a thanks to all the stakeholders and the IT folks that met with us. We met with about 20 stakeholders throughout the district to really get a good understanding of where the IT environment stands right now and any potential risks around that environment. Some of the top risks that we identified really were around the network systems, specifically with a transition to supporting a hybrid and remote learning environment. Those systems have become even more critical than they were before. Also around data security and incident management. Those are two areas that I think everyone's seen in the news quite often recently with a number of different organizations. And I would say that the district here is in no different shape that you could be a target for those types of attacks. And the third biggest risk that we identified really is also another emerging risk we're seeing with a lot of organizations around the selection and management of third-party hosted solutions. We know the district has a number of those solutions in place, and really that's something that we feel like is just an expanding risk area for all organizations. So I will go ahead and pull up the report then to go into the next section here. Sorry, let me share this really quickly. So in our process, we met with, like I said, roughly 20 stakeholders throughout the district. Our methodology was to interview those stakeholders and also to survey them to understand what we thought the largest risk areas for the district were. So through that process, we assigned each of the areas that we were reviewing an inherent risk level. That's the risk if there are no controls to mitigate that risk. We also assessed a mitigation level the district has put in place around those risks, and then also determined a residual risk level. That's the risk that's remaining after taking into account the controls that are in place. Now, I would like to also call out that we did not test controls during this assessment process. This process was based on previous audit findings and also the perception of the different stakeholder groups we interviewed. And the intent of this was really just to develop a audit plan for the district that addresses what we perceive to be the highest risk areas. So what I wanted to do is focus on what that audit plan looks like and where we thought the risks were. So you can see in this 4-year audit plan, we have a number of different audits. We've assigned each of the different IT control domains a frequency for audit based on the risk level. So we recommend that the areas be either audited annually, biannually, or triennially, depending on the risk level. And we've put together some proposed audits for the district based on our understanding of where you are at in different IT maturity levels. So we recommend reviewing items like the business continuity design, and then coming back in a few years and reviewing the effectiveness, items like that. So that's the design and effectiveness breakout is really to look at areas that we know are being matured within the district. Some areas that are already mature, we recommend just jumping straight in and auditing those right away, such as the network configuration. We know that there's been a number of network updates during the pandemic period. So I don't know if folks have any questions around the report or around the audit plan. I would like to make sure we have time to address those before we hand it over to Vandana to address any other concerns around the IT risk assessment.
Yes, I'd like to open the floor to committee members if you do have any questions for the Schneider Downs team at this time, or if maybe you would like to wait until after Ms. Mierney gives her response, and then we could ask questions in general. It's your
I
pleasure.
don't have any questions at this time.
I don't either right at this point.
I have one quick one, and
Yes, ma'am,
maybe,
Madam Co-Chair.
maybe I should know this, but this is an audit plan based on the research that Snyder Down has done as to who and how and all of that. That's up to how we decide to staff it and all of that.
Yeah, that will be up to me to figure out how to
Okay.
go about it. And I do have a plan.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this.
Right.
Right.
And you've talked about developing that expertise in-house. So this is sort of the launching off. This is
Yeah.
the plan that will be enacted by that. Okay, got it. Thank you.
And even though we can't see him, Mr. Vajot, I'm not sure if you have any questions at this point.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
this is his area.
No specific question. I think from my standpoint, it made sense. So
All
appreciate
right.
the work from Schneider Downs and
Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you all.
back to you, Sean.
Okay, so that was the conclusion of what I had to cover today. I can stop sharing.
Okay, welcome, Ms. Vierny. Your response to what we've been given here from our wonderful team from Schneider Downs would be greatly appreciated. Good to have you here with us.
Thank you, Board Member Ragland, and Co-Chair Board Member Ms. Beckerly and Ms. Smith. Happy to be here as always. It's really, as a geek, it's fun time for me to speak to you all about how we are mitigating risk here. And I really appreciated the collaboration between Schneider Downs and Dion. He set up the whole thing and he facilitated the entire process. So appreciate that as well. And as Sean teed it off very well in the executive summary, right? This isn't an IT audit report. This is more of a recommendation of how we need to be conducting IT audits in the future, like what areas should we be auditing and, at what interval. So the good news is a lot of areas are identified as biennial, triennial, and the annual areas identified for annual audit are more based on industry best practices, as well as the increasing malware and cybersecurity threats, and how we continue to immensely and significantly strengthen our posture to meet those threats and mitigate those threats from happening to us. It's happening across the board in education, K-12, higher education. So we should never hold ourselves exempt to it, regardless of what is our current security posture. So like Sean teed it up, this wasn't an audit, or we didn't produce any artifacts we weren't asked. We would have gladly produced artifacts, or we do penetration testing every year. We did it this year too, to just make sure we are safe and secure. And we are also in the process of hiring an IT cybersecurity program administrator. We went through first round of interviews. We made an offer. Unfortunately, the candidate did not accept the offer. So we are back in the hiring ring, but we hope to get a good candidate soon here. And in my report that will come as part of the biannual report I do for the Audit and Accountability team, I'm going to show you some plans we have for the next 5 years, next 2 years, 2 to 5, and 5 to 10. And I haven't made any plans 10 and beyond because the scenario changes every single day. So if you have any questions at this time, I can answer it for you.
It should be on.
Hello? Oh, there you
You're-
go. This all makes sense to you. I mean, really, that's really what we're looking for, is that this plan, the frequency and the topics and all of that are all consistent with what you think is appropriate and will facilitate your ability to manage IT.
Absolutely, because, the way I look at audits is, it's like, like I said, there's only a couple of them that are annual. And audits are a way, especially internal audits, are a way that we can strengthen ourselves and continue to go from strength to strength.
Right.
And there is no special preparation needed. If we're doing everything right, they do a test, we produce the artifacts, and the audit is done, right? So yeah, I'm good with the recommendations.
My question is concerning capacity in the human capital. Do we have the human capital to mitigate the risk? That is my thing, and I know we've got a plan that the auditor will be speaking with us about. But do you have the team that you need in order to execute with what we need at this point, Ms. Vierny?
I really appreciate that question and the support, Board Member Ragland. But I cannot tell you what effort it's going to take to mitigate. So as we go through these audits and we find we need a strengthened resource base to mitigate. We will cross that bridge then. It's hard to tell at this point, without a formal audit and the report and what high risks, moderate risks, or low level risks we find. It's very hard to predict what kind of human capital I would need in place. So.
I mean, is it accurate to say part of the benefit of this process is it will reveal that,
Expose it, yeah, yep.
you know?
Absolutely. And one
Yeah.
of the things that you will find in this audit report is, it is come up in multiple audit reports in this as well, that we don't have enough staff.
Right.
And that is something that I'll continue to, Dr. James got on board. I'll be reporting to him. I'll be meeting with Dr. Dixon and Dr. James in the context of this assessment report, as well as, other recommendations. And I have put together a 5-year org chart, like a strategic org chart. We will be having those discussions. This is only a second day, so I'm waiting until next week.
Yes, right. Absolutely. Other questions for Ms. Vierney?
I don't have any questions, but just more a statement that I'm glad to see a plan of action going forward. It's a very volatile environment in regards to the cyber, and that things don't be going on an ongoing basis and thinking getting ahead of the wagon, per se. So, no, I feel real comfortable with that, and we have to see what, like you said, results of audits, and if you have the manpower to implement things. Thank you, Mr. Daniel.
Absolutely agree. If I tell you how many attempts we thwart every day, you won't sleep tonight. So.
No, I know. Amazing.
Okay, well, if there's no further comments,
Just other to Smith, Ms. Vierney, if you're, ever need to talk or want to talk through some more items and details, I'm making myself available. Please reach out and
Thank you, Mr.
set up
Vadim.
time to talk.
Absolutely. Will do. Thank you.
and I will take advantage of that offer. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Good, good. Well,
Okay.
again, thank you to our team from Schneider Downs, as well as our CIO and her office, and everyone that has participated in bringing this report to fruition. It's more than a notion when you get asked to do some really detailed work, but we're glad to have Schneider Downs on with us here. We can only get better through this process, and that's what we are all about. So thank you all for the work that you've put in making this happen.
Thank you. What my future plans are is in relation to the suggested schedule that Schneider Downs has presented. I don't want to jinx it, but hopefully I'll be having someone join our team who can do this type of work.
Right.
I would like to give them an opportunity to look at the plan and actually see, what's reasonable for them to undertake, given that they won't have a full year, and then blend this work plan into our work plan.
When do you think we can expect to hear?
I don't want to jinx it, but.
Okay.
Yes,
No,
ma'am.
no,
Okay,
no.
understood.
I
Understood.
appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Okay.
My fingers crossed.
Yes.
Yes, fingers crossed and toes crossed. so.
Right.
There you go.
Okay,
And Auditor Smith, one quick question as we're looking at the years that are defined on page 6 of the report. Are those calendar years or school years?
we normally have our risk assessment based on school year.
Okay.
And I like I said, I'm planning to, once I have this position filled, which hopefully will be in the very near future, have them look at the plan and see what they can accomplish, this year, and then we'll go from there. But I will bring that back to the committee.
Thank you.
All
Okay.
right. Thank you. So, Ms. Vierney, you are the star of the show today, and we will welcome you with our technology update for item number 3 on our agenda. So the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Board Member Ragland. Can I share my screen? Right?
Yeah, I think you
Yes,
can.
ma'am.
Okay. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Okay. No?
Did, and now we don't.
Oh, okay, sorry. I should just leave it as a monitor. So if I'm not looking at you, I'm looking at my other monitor. So apologize for that. If I move it across to this monitor, it stops displaying. So we should call the CIO. So the outcomes of this update, like I said, I get geeked out when I come and present in front of you twice a year, but we are doing this at the cabinet, and I feel like this sets the expectation for the group on what are the outcomes of this presentation, right? Mostly the outcomes on this presentation is to inform the committee on the status of school readiness, and inform you on the status of the long-term technology plan, and inform the committee on some risk mitigation strategies we are putting in place. We have put in place since the last presentation. From a technology readiness perspective, we'll be discussing schools readiness, student devices, teacher technology, administrative technology, internet access, and then of course the long-term tech task force. I'll be discussing a timeline, but I can briefly give you an overview of what it is about, just to, bring back our previous points of discussion. So all new students to CCS are being issued a device today. Repairs will happen as soon as possible, as soon as students bring it up. Most devices should be repairable if there wasn't intentional damage. Those that are not repairable, we will replace them. We are first addressing new students to CCS, then we will address students that did not get a device last year by choice. They chose not to get a device last year. And then we will address the replacements, but we'll try and repair as soon as possible all the devices so students can continue to use them in the classrooms and at home. And this is a public meeting, so I'll appeal to our parents. Please send these Chromebooks charged every day to school. You've heard us say this multiple times, and it really helps them have a productive day at school. And we also plan to hold a 10% inventory on stock all the time so that we can address future repairs and replacements. From an internet access perspective, in the schools itself, we have put an access point in every classroom. If you remember, we went back to a year or a year and a half, we had complaints about Wi-Fi only available in the commons or in the cafeteria. Now every classroom has its individual access point. So we had good internet, but we now have good Wi-Fi in every classroom. So I'm not going to jinx it, but we have been in session for 2 weeks, week and a half now, and the students are doing okay. Administrative buildings, we prioritize the school buildings first, and we are coming up to all the administrative buildings and getting all our buildings equipped with more Wi-Fi access points. We do have good internet again. We need to make sure we have enough access points in the buildings. I think we are almost done with all the administrative buildings as well. Network switches in schools. These are devices in network closets in schools that kind of then, send the connections to all the classrooms. These switches are working fine, working in excellent condition, but they are due for upgrade. So we will be upgrading them through the rest of the year. This would be no outages. This would be no interruption to what students and teachers need to do in terms of technology in the classroom. This will be pretty seamless, but it's time for an infrastructure update, and we'll be doing that this year. For student home access, student devices access, right? The first preference is for our students and families to apply for the emergency broadband benefit. The federal government has given up to $50 to providers per family. And this is mostly for non-banked and, where credit scores aren't excellent. It is mostly for families that are struggling to the pandemic to take advantage of. So the qualification is very straightforward. It is need-based, and you can apply to them. And we have shared all this information on our website as well as our intranet site for principals to share with families. There is a flyer, there's a number to call. It is the USAC number, and they will actually walk you through the process. You don't have to go online, and you don't have to know what to click, what to respond. They will walk you through this, and they'll help you apply. We want families to have broadband wired access to their homes, and the federal government is providing this benefit, and we want our families to take advantage of that. If for some reason you're not able to take advantage of that, we will still continue to give hotspots to every student in need, so that, you've gone so far with technology these past 18 months, we can't go back. We'd like to go further ahead, and we will provide the means to do that. Again, all this information is available on our website, and we will be putting it on the internet as well. From a teacher device perspective, all the teachers that were in the district in 2021, 2021 were given a district device, loaned a district device for use, which they did put to great use during the pandemic when we were in virtual learning mode. And they continue to use it today as their classroom for integrating technology. We had 212 new teachers start with the district in the beginning of this year, and all of them have been given a device as well. And we had some new principals start. Traditionally, administrators put a purchase order, get a device, but we are not holding them hostage to the device, unavailability in the market. We are giving them the devices through our supply chain. So we're taking care of that as well. And our newest school, World Language Immersion School, is ready for inauguration with student and teacher technology. They did put in a new request today. We'll be fulfilling that soon. That's the latest on that. From a blended perspective, they identified teacher technology for our blended program. They wanted multiple devices, Apple Pros and iPad Pros and the PC. So they've been given multiple devices. They have some creative ways of teaching their students. Now with Apple purchases comes an excellent PD program where they teach our teachers to be more creative and use more products and software that's readily available with the products. So this PD is one-on-one continuous. So we are taking advantage of that for the blended team as well. And, we've been in constant touch with the blended leadership, schools leadership, and we are being as agile as we can on both ends, because we know what we know now, and if we find new information that needs us to change track, we are ready to do that. We are on call to do that, standby to do that. So this is from, device and access perspective. From a service perspective, this is the highest volume we see. We get over 2,000 calls a week into our service desk in the beginning of the school year because students have forgotten passwords, parents can't get into portals, they can't get into Clever. So we actually added additional overflow agents to be able to handle the call volume. And we also added a callback service. Earlier, they'll wait in the queue, and if they'll wait, and if they can't wait, they will hang up. We call them abandoned calls. But now we provided a callback service, and we find our parents happy to receive a callback at a different time, so they can leave their number and we'll call them back. And we have also introduced an SMS service for staff. We actually got several good feedback from staff. They're delighted to be able to chat with somebody and get immediate help instead of calling and waiting in line. Like, this is the age of, I keep telling it's no more in line, it is online. So they're delighted to have the opportunity to chat and get answers. So communication of all this, we are going ahead this year with a very clear and concise communication strategy. Again, information is shared via daily communications to our building leaderships, the CCS intranet and internet as well. Long-term technology task force. So the long-term technology task force was formed under the direction of Dr. Dixon. She wanted to really move our district forward in terms of technology and technology integration into the 21st century. So she commissioned me to dream, which I love to do, the dream what a district will look like in the school year 2023, including this one-to-one device of the future. So we are one-to-one now, and other than the students who choose not to get a device from us, but those we did as it was very reactionary, right? We had a supply of Chromebooks. We bought a few Chromebooks. Dr. Dixon said, if you were to do this, and you were given the time to plan and execute, how would you do it? So part of this is also that future one-to-one device strategy. What is it going to be? So what we did in the summer is we piloted a couple of new devices other than Chromebooks. We piloted Microsoft Go's, and the teachers got a corresponding Microsoft Surface Pro. And we piloted Apple iPads, and the teachers got iPad Pros. And that's when we discovered the power of Apple Care and Apple support. And there are a few things we also want to think from long-term perspective. Protective cases. We saw a lot of breakage of screens, right? We collected a lot of data, and we're not going to let this experience go to waste. Let no crisis go to waste, right? We're going to take the lessons learned. So we are looking at protective cases. So we piloted protective cases. We are looking at, keyboards. Apple calls it crayons for students to use the pen-like thing. So we are doing all that. We have done it as part of the pilot. By end of September, we will be making a decision on what the mix is going to look like. We'll still have some Chromebooks for some grade levels, I think. That's my gut feel. Don't quote me. I'm empowering the subcommittee to come up with those recommendations. I'm closely involved, but I want to empower people that are actually out there doing this pilot to get the data and let the data speak for itself. So we'll be making a decision soon on this. Again, what is that vision of that long-term technology is one-to-one technology will become the culture of Columbus City Schools. We will be closely working with curriculum design and professional development for our teachers, students, parents, and administrators and leaders. We're going to get everybody on the speedy track for technology integration, because integration has to happen by choice and by design. It does not happen by accident. We can learn skills by accident, but integration needs to happen by design with intentionality. So that is the triumvirate you see there. And that is the vision for the long-term technology task force. And we are in this particular timeline. I kind of discussed briefly what it is, and I just put it in there for reference. Now we come to the meat of this presentation, right? IT risk mitigation. So we just had Sean present from Schneider Downs. We collaborated with internal audit, and we have arrived at a recommended approach for our ongoing IT audit program. We have updated our Content Keeper software. Content Keeper is that gatekeeper, if you will, that keeps our students from going to risky sites, going to sites where they can harm themselves, or sites that are not safe and secure. And we are also piloting Cisco Umbrella. We found that Content Keeper may not do all of the things we wanted to do. So Cisco Umbrella is another product we are piloting, and I'll show you some screenshots on what we see there. And I also mentioned we have this IT cybersecurity program manager position that hiring is in progress. And we continue to explore new options. So we are actually in the process of doing a POC with the Veronis data security platform, which is a secure access service edge. It's called SASE, S-A-S-E. And what it offers is, data protection, threat detection, ransomware detection, and we have to give it a lot of information to do the data classification correctly, like, sensitive data, confidential data, that kind of classification. And then it also helps us identify insider threats and external threats. Now we work in an K-12. We have some brilliant, creative students. So I call this the friendly fire. So I'm always very leery of insider threat as I am of outsider threat. So this platform kind of helps us identify this across Office 365, our file systems, and a variety of our cloud providers. One of the risk Sean was talking about was, hey, a lot of our applications are SaaS applications. So this will help us mitigate some of that too. And then I show you the roadmap. I want to get to the level of IT vendor risk management, right? I want to tell my vendors, this is the basic I expect from you from security. Otherwise, I'm not going to do business with you. So we will come to that in a moment. But these are that is the Varonis data security platform. And we are also going to pilot something called Gaggle. Some of you might have heard of it. Gaggle is a platform that helps keeps our students safe and secure, not only. So if you look at Content Keeper and Umbrella as it stops the students from where they're going, Gaggle keeps them safe from how they're doing wherever they're allowed to go. There is a cool video. If we have 2 minutes, I can play that video. Do we have the time, Ms. Smith?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
In describing Gaggle in a couple words, it's easy for me. Life-saving, life-changing, family connecting.
Gaggle to our district is another set of hands that we don't have. It allows us to be able to do a multitude of jobs and to keep our children safe when we don't have the manpower to do that ourselves.
Security and support are the two biggest words that come to mind for me.
I would say life-changing. I would say extraordinary. And I would say that the service is truly a partnership.
Gaggle partners with districts to help our kids stay safe and make good choices and know that they are seen and supported by the adults in their school system.
If I had to describe Gaggle in a few words, I would refer to you as our online guardian.
Gaggle is an important tool in your toolbox supporting school safety and student mental health.
I think of Gaggle as a partner and not a vendor. They're a partner with us in educating kids and supporting them.
If I were to describe Gaggle, I would describe it as powerful. I also think a word I would use is invisible. And I say that because the best technology isn't talked about. It's there for your protection. It's run seamlessly.
Like a warm blanket over the district, just keeping kids safe, caring, and helping students with issues before they really become issues.
Gaggle Safety Management partners with school districts to help identify students who may need intervention. Let's walk through the journey of a possible student's situation. During his second period high school English class, Colin is using the time to write about how he's feeling. He's hurting, and he's been thinking about killing himself. Gaggle Safety Management now goes to work. Our proprietary machine learning technology identifies the keywords kill myself and suicide. A trained safety expert then looks at the context of that document and using the Gaggle response rubric determines that this is a possible student situation. Once the safety expert determines the severity of the incident, they then send an email notification to all the school level and district level emergency contacts. Next, the safety expert calls the first school level emergency contact. If no one answers, they move to the second contact. And in this instance, it was the assistant principal. She answers and confirms that she will go and check her email right away. When the assistant principal opens the notification email, she's able to see that Colin is the student that wrote the document. She's able to click on the preview link and read exactly what was written. Upon seeing the concerning statements, she follows her district's policies and procedures to contact the counselor and discuss the best next steps. The assistant principal and the counselor come up with a plan of action and agree that someone needs to provide intervention to Colin. The counselor has already established a trusting relationship with the student, and they agree that she should be the one who follows up. This is just one example of how school districts can leverage Gaggle Safety Management to provide safety to their students while using school-issued technology.
That was very sobering, but I thought that was very powerful too. So we are doing a pilot. We will be doing a pilot. We haven't started it. It's October 1st. We worked through Mr. Bond's organization. We had a lot of questions, obviously, because this is important to us. And we'll be doing the pilot October 1 with blended program. The pilot will be with the blended program. So let's look at, we talked about Content Keeper and Cisco, and I always use Gartner as my sounding board. They're a premier IT analysis firm. And if you look at Content Keeper and Cisco, they're both in niche players and challengers and niche players. So you can rest assured that we are going with the best of breed products here. And this is this morning, yesterday morning, this was what's on our Cisco umbrella dashboard. I actually have privileges to look at it. I look at it every day. So if you look at it, we had 72.8 million total requests that we blocked that do not belong in our school district. So that is how these tools are helping us stay safe and secure, and it gives us a point of reference at any point in time what's going on with, some of these are actually state-sponsored attacks, not our country-sponsored attacks. So, but good news is we caught them, we stopped them. That's the good news. That's what I want you to walk away with. I just wanted to provide a screenshot for you. So what is in the horizon, right? When I hire the cybersecurity program administrator, what are we going to do with this person? What's going to happen? How am I going to continue to make sure we are safe and secure for both our staff and our students? So like I said, I use Gartner as this guardrail that I go to for advice. And this is what they're saying is going to happen in the next 2 years, 2 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, and what is obsolete. So they're saying this whole business process risk modeling, we all thought was the Bible, and we're doing DR exercises based on that. They're saying that's obsolete. They're saying maturity certifications are obsolete. What really matters is how you're protecting your assets. When I say assets, I mean our network data centers, our students, our devices, our endpoints, everything. So this is called the hype cycle. It goes through this innovation trigger, right? People are always finding new products, and then it goes through this peak of inflated expectations that everybody gets on board and starts implementing it, right? Everybody gets hyped up and says, I'm going to implement this, I'm going to implement this. Then you go through a trial of disillusionment, like this great TV that you bought doesn't look as great anymore after you've used it for a while and you found that it has some issues. And then you go through the slope of enlightenment, and then you come to the plateau of productivity, which means that is where you have really, really mature products in the market. So if you see, even in the next 2 to 5 years, the risk management products are going to be the only mature ones on the market. And then you'll have hazard and threat intelligence services, you have data classification services there. And those are the things that Varonis does. Those are the things we are already looking at implementing. Those are the things we are looking at getting in the district to improve our security posture. And from a priority matrix, this is how the hype cycle translates, what we should be focusing on. And if you look at it, we talked about Varonis, which is all bundled here. And we are also looking at, data and analytics. We will be adding governance when we get the cybersecurity person here, GDRP and GRC and all those governance methodologies. And some data classifications come to the products we are looking at now. And so we are already in the 2 to 5 year horizon is what I'm trying to tell you from both the hype cycle and from the priority matrix. So that, I hope, reassures the committee that we are headed in the right direction. And that concludes my presentation. I'll take questions now.
Thank you, Ms. Verney. Questions for Ms. Verney from members of the committee? Mr. Vajan, I do want to recognize you. I know that you are here and joining the meeting virtually, but if you have questions at this time, please submit them.
Yes, I have actually a couple.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it, Chair Ragland. Ms. Verney, thank you so much for your update. You mentioned that we're looking into Apple devices and expanding the use of those. Are we purchasing those through like Apple DEP program? I think it's called device enrollment. And are we using MDM solutions, so mobile device management solutions?
We have JAM-F in the district already. We do have a few Apple devices already, so we use JAM-F.
And then as we're purchasing, are those being purchased through a device enrollment program from Apple, so they're auto-enrolled?
Yes, whatever was purchased already has been. We have pockets of Apple devices in district already for our pre-K and special needs and students like that.
Yeah, I think that one thing to make sure that, to the board members, that is Ms. Verney's trying to roll that out, I would suggest that we make sure that purchases of devices like that, I know we had audits in the past where we were getting grants, but that they're being purchased through, Apple provides it. It's called the device enrollment program. And if you make purchases through that, they automatically enroll the devices in your mobile device management agent, which enables you to control things like safe browsing and things like that for the school district without having to manually add them after the fact. And I guess as we looked at the Cisco umbrella, kind of charts and diagrams, are some of those things that are on there, are we doing any type of follow-up and research, especially if we're seeing some of the blocks?
Absolutely, we work with a wide variety of local and federal providers to us. So we work with the state of Ohio SOC, and we research through them, and we research through our partners, and we research through the management council. So we work with multiple different partners, both public sector and our trusted partners, that we continue to research and mitigate. That's something we have a person dedicated to doing that right now. We have more than a person. We have a team dedicated to doing this. We just don't, we are hiring that cybersecurity program administrator that's going to give that overarching view and then set policy and direction for the program.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I recognize, you like everybody else is feeling the crunch and actually being able to hire qualified cybersecurity engineers. I think everybody's feeling that, and there's.
Yeah, if you have any friends, send them our way. The problem is we're a public sector enterprise and we can't pay them what they can make at a nationwide or something, so.
Yes, I think that is the challenge. I think that school board members should recognize. I hear anywhere from negative unemployment, couple percent in information security to 1%, which is trailing significantly lower than what we see in the rest of the workforce. So they're highly in demand skill sets.
We are going through a period in IT which is termed as the great IT resignation.
Yep. And I think that is a challenge that every other, I think, school district is facing. And it's certainly, I think we're not alone in that. But thank you, Ms. Verney. I appreciate answering questions.
You're welcome.
Certainly sounds like an opportunity to groom our own.
Right, or at least put a pin in that, because I think that we need to make sure we're not being penny wise and pound foolish in terms of how important that role is. And
yes, ma'am.
So let's make sure we continue that conversation at the board level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I wanted to share something, if I may. Tuesday, I was at the CIO Tomorrow conference, and for the first time, they introduced a mentoring program, and they chose Columbus City Schools as the pilot district. And 15 of our seniors from our career and technical education program came as mentees, and I mentored one of them, and several of my colleagues in the CIO fraternity mentored others. And this is to Board Member Ragland's comment on let's groom our own. Several of them were interested in cybersecurity. Mm-hmm. So they attended tracks on cybersecurity. They went and talked to people that specialize in that. Our students made me so incredibly proud by how professionally they carried themselves and how knowledgeable they were. So, Board Member Ragland, the future looks bright. We can
Amen.
groom our own.
Yes, very good, very good. Thank you for that. Other questions, comments from the committee? Yes, sir, Mr. Grant.
No, I just wanted to comment that, you know, in your presentation, you said you hope you leave here more relieved than worried. So I think you did that, because one of the first things I was curious about when you said that you had added so many access points in the school systems, and I said, you know, that's good for the students, but does that create, you know, more of a concern from you know, somebody trying to hack into your system and stuff? But then later on in your presentation, you talked about how you were identifying those attacks and even the state-sponsored attacks, and that's good to hear and to know. And so I appreciate that presentation. That was really good. I did have one question in terms of the GAGO system that you were looking at, and I'm sure you've already done that in the vetting of it in terms of the HIPAA issues that maybe students are doing stuff that, you know, a third party is then looking at that, maybe not directly with their knowledge, and, you know, what they might be seeing and how that is being handled from that standpoint.
Absolutely. We have data sharing agreements with our vendors because we have to worry about HIPAA and FERPA as well. And our legal department thoroughly analyzes the contracts as well. And so we did ask them a lot of questions, and they were able to provide us reassurances, and they did give us a data sharing agreement signed back, no additional terms or conditions attached. So that's how we mitigate the risk there.
Okay. Again, I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
My question goes back to the school's readiness portion of the presentation, Ms. Vierny, concerning internet access and specifically the emergency broadband benefit. I know that we're working with our families and we've got that information readily available for them. Have we talked with our Department of Engagement as well as Communications to make sure that our community partners know about this benefit and that we are championing it for our students? Sometimes a family may not get the message directly from us, but they may get it from one of our several partners that we have. And I just want to know, and if we haven't, it may be a good opportunity to get Mr. Wortman and Mr. Varner involved in that, so that our community partners know that this is available for our families and the broader community as well. Because you know, the more people that have this information, the merrier. And like I said, sometimes the message might not come directly from Columbus City Schools, but one of our brilliant partners may be the one to get that message through in a little bit of a different setting from us. So if we haven't done that, that may be my suggestion. But thank you for bringing this to our attention, and I'm very happy that our most vulnerable families are getting this type of benefit.
Absolutely, Chair Ragland. So as soon as we get this information, I do share it with Mr. Wortman and Mr. Warner, but I will confirm that they have shared it with their partners. They did mention it in our virtual engagement sessions. They continuously reiterate the flyer. We have a flyer and we display it and we talk to it. I have people from IT that attend the virtual session, engagement sessions, and they talk about it, but I will confirm on the partner angle. We are also part of consortium, if you will, that's called the Franklin County Digital Alliance Coalition. And the purpose of this, when this was formed, is we were one of the founding members. I'm thankful to Dr. Dixon for allowing us to participate. Scott Wortman, Alicia Gillison, and I were in one of those initial forming meetings. What they're doing is, it's an organization of over 36 organizations coming together, state, local, federal government, and the Columbus Foundation, and the Can't Stop Columbus and the Columbus Partnership, Smart Columbus, City of Columbus, us, everybody coming together to solve this digital divide in our community. So they did a pilot of what we call private LTE in the South Side, and we had members of partner organizations like PACT knock at doors, and ask families to enroll.
Right.
not just inform them, we actually knock the doors to do that. So we have that support in place as well as 36 organizations like Jewish Family Services. There is the Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority, the Columbus Metropolitan Libraries. They started the
Yes.
initiatives. We have multiple partners present there that are all in for us.
Thank you.
I have a couple. Yeah, and to that end, we consistently, I mean, beyond technology, have the problem of getting the word out to certain segments of our families. I think making sure the teachers know about this, because sometimes they're the first line, parent ambassadors, and, even if you're presenting it at an engagement, it can't hurt to send it to the parent ambassador separately and that sort of thing. Faith community, too, strikes me as, churches, that sort of thing. Because we can, getting the message out is hard. There's only so many people who watch, there's only so many families who actually engage with our website and read their emails. So, I mean, it's a challenge well beyond this, but it's just some thoughts. Because I like that too, and I love the, okay, I had a couple of other things. If you go to your vision with your triangle, this one, this page.
What's that?
The, our
That was
vision
more,
one-to-one
Dr. Dixon and Wortman, they put that together.
But anyway, what I want to encourage you, include the facilities master planning process in this. They're thinking big now, and they're trying to start to refine our values and our priorities and figure out how to translate that into a facilities master plan. But I think that this needs to be a critical part of that discussion. And so engage, if you could, with them in terms of, the nitty-gritty practical. I mean, somebody was telling me about technology, you have to build the buildings in such a way so that when the cables change and this changes, you have the ability to swap in and swap out, but also even, big picture stuff like we having a Chinese class in 4 different high schools at the same time, and then how can we, that really, the technology is going to be huge in this facilities process. So I just want to make sure that that's part of that triangle.
Thanks, Vice Chair Beckerly. I just wanted to add that I've reached out to Alex a few times and Dr. Stanford as well now, so that we can be included in that, because even simple things like having extra chargers, extra outlets in a room, right, for our students to charge their devices, those things are critical.
Right, the little stuff and the big stuff.
Coming with a device and that's it, no supplies needed. That's the vision. That's a long-term vision. Right. So for that to happen, we have to be hand in hand with the facilities management planning, because there's a lot of needs I have that I need to make sure are met.
That are in their minds. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. So I just wanted to address that. And I very much appreciated the report, the structure of it. It really, it's clear you're thinking about all fronts, and it's really well put together. Thank you.
Okay. Well, seeing no other, sorry, Mr. Daniel, please.
No, I didn't have it.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, no. I didn't have a question.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, seeing no other questions or comments for Ms. Vierny. Ms. Vierny, thank you and your team for this presentation. Excellent job today. Appreciate all of your work and much continued success to you and the team in the IT department.
Thank you, Chair Ragland. I will convey to them. They'll appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next on our agenda, we've got accountability reports concerning Operation Fix-It. Madam Auditor, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Operation Fix-It is a part of our levy commitment from 2016. And I think maybe recently, as maybe last year, we had an update from Mr. Odoms and Mr. Trevino, and I see Mr. Trevino is on the screen now. So, Alex, I will turn it over to you.
All right, great. Good afternoon, everybody. Give me 1 second to get my screen share up and running.
See Mr. Odoms. Hello, Mr. Odoms. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
Somebody will just confirm that you're able to see my cover sheet with Operation Fix-It Issue 57 update. I'll go ahead and get started.
Yes, we can see it.
All right, fantastic. So thank you for the opportunity to present our work in Operation Fix-It. So I'm going to give just a little bit of historical context just to kind of put this work into perspective. So I always think it's important to remind everybody that our district really went through a pretty unique time from 1977 through 2001, where there was no significant construction throughout our district. And so as a result, you really see that in the age of our facilities, as well as to some extent the condition of our facilities. However, starting in 2004, we got the first of those facility master plan buildings built. And over the course of that time, we either newly constructed or comprehensively renovated a total of 46 facilities. So currently, our district operates at 112 school sites. And I really point that out because at the time we launched Operation Fix-It back in 2016, we only operated at 110 school sites. The two changes there would be the opening of the Linden Park Neighborhood Early Childhood Center, as well as the opening of the Walden site for the standalone 6th grade of Woodward Park. So that brings us to 112 school sites today. So we refer to our facilities as those 46 facility master plan or FMP facilities. We call those other 66 facilities our legacy facilities. And so those are those buildings that we have not yet had the opportunity to improve through the FMP process. And again, just for some context, 54 of those buildings exceed 50 years in age, and 9 of them exceed 80 years in age. And again, just to be fully transparent, so some of those buildings are going to have additions, but at least the original portion of those buildings would be 80 or more years old since they've been comprehensively renovated. And so Operation Fix-It was really designed to tackle that deferred maintenance that we know exists at so many of those facilities. But when we get to the next screen, you'll see that it only targets 64 of those facilities because those are the only ones that existed at the time that we launched Operation Fix-It. So you should have a handout in front of you. I know this screen is going to be very hard to read, so I just kind of put it here as an example for you to see, but you've got that handout in front of you. It should be two-sided printed, and it's going to show you all 389 projects that were promised as part of Operation Fix-It. So Operation Fix-It was funded by Issue 57. It is a $125 million bond issue to, again, tackle those 389 projects that exist at those 64 legacy sites, with one exception. So if you look on the back side of that page, you'll see that South High School is the only building that is technically a facility master plan building. It did not have all of its roof replaced as part of its renovation. And so just because of age and condition of that roof, there was a partial roof replacement for South High School that was funded as part of Operation Fix-It. So I'm just going to walk you quickly through the breakdown of those projects across the sites and the categories. So category number 1 is roofing repairs. There were a total of 31 projects as part of Operation Fix-It. And at this time, all 31 of those projects are complete. Next category is HVAC overhaul. There are a total of 45 projects as part of this category of work. Of those projects, 41 are complete. There are 4 that are continuing on into the fall. And just a reminder that when we set out on these projects, many of these 45 buildings did not have classroom air conditioning. And at the completion of this work, all of those classrooms will have classroom air conditioning. And then if you look at that, that larger chart that I gave you, you'll notice that there are 16 buildings. So there are actually 18 additional buildings that do not show up on that list. I'll get into a little more detail later in terms of what will remain without those HVAC overhauls and classroom air conditioning when we wrap up Operation Fix-It. Next category of work is safety and security. So these upgrades were made at all 64 of those legacy facilities. And so right now, 59 of those projects are complete. There are 5 of them that are ongoing because we are dealing with some supplier issues on some storefronts and doors, but we expect to have that work wrapped up here fairly shortly. The next category of work is our fire alarm replacements. 34 total projects. 32 of those projects are complete, while 2 of them are still ongoing. This is one of those projects that I like to highlight just because it might be one that if you've been in the building when the fire alarm has gone off, you've certainly noticed it. I think our school communities definitely notice it because one of the real enhancements that has come out as a result of these fire alarm upgrades, it is a result of a change in the code. But if you've ever been in a building where the fire alarm goes off, you'll oftentimes see lots of hands over ears because they do have to alarm at a certain volume to make sure they catch people's attentions, but it can be very difficult to talk over them. So the code has fairly recently required a change where they now have voice enunciation. So rather than just kind of that loud squawking that you might be used to, our new systems actually include a pre-recorded human voice that gives directions on what to do depending on that situation. So obviously if it's a fire alarm, it will direct the building occupants to evacuate, but it also has other pre-recorded messages for things like tornado drills, as well as shelter in places. And it also gives our building administrators the opportunity to page the entire building with any specific message they might need to broadcast. Our next category of work is plumbing upgrades. And this work was promised at a total of 60 sites. And that work is complete at this time. And this work was really focused on our student restrooms. So looking at the fixtures in those restrooms, the toilet partitions, the flooring, the ceilings, the walls, and making the upgrades that were necessary to bring those bathrooms up to a nice condition. Next category of work is asphalt and concrete, a total of 57 projects. 55 of those are complete with just 2 of them ongoing. And this work is largely looking at the parking lots in our schools, but also the playgrounds. So largely focused on asphalt with some improvements and upgrades to things like sidewalks and curbs where necessary. The next category of work is lighting upgrades. So this work was also included at all 64 of those legacy facilities. So of that work, 56 of those sites are complete with 8 of them ongoing. And this is one that changes almost on a daily basis in terms of the work being complete. And this work was largely focused on making LED lighting upgrades where largely our buildings are lit with fluorescent technology, or at least they were lit with fluorescent technology. This work is really important for a couple reasons. So number one, if you've been into a building that has older fluorescent lights, you'll tend to find lots of mismatched color because lamps will get replaced with different color temperature lamps. Those lamps also tend to shift color as they age. So with these LED lighting upgrades, we have very, very consistent color temperatures across our buildings. We'll also see a reduction in the energy usage. And we're also expecting to see a significant reduction in the amount of maintenance required because of the extended lamp life of these lamps. And I did ask for a little tally just to kind of give you some order of magnitude of the work. But when we complete this summer's work, we'll have replaced over 68,000 lamps. And that's just for this summer's work. And we will have replaced over 1,100 light fixtures where those fixtures were not in suitable condition to just relamp. And instead we replaced the fixture as well as the lamps. And then the final category of work is electrical systems. And this work was really focused. And so if you look at the chart, you'll see that it mirrors the HVAC upgrades. So where we had buildings with HVAC upgrades and the building was not previously air conditioned, we knew we would need to make a significant electrical infrastructure improvement to be able to support the loads that those new air conditioning systems would place on this infrastructure. So 34 total projects included as part of Operation Fix-It. 30 of those are complete. And the last 4 that are ongoing mirror those HVAC projects that are also still ongoing as well. So just to give you a little bit of a financial overview of the project. So our contracting as of about noon yesterday, and I don't expect this number has changed, is just shy of $129 million. And so the question you're probably gonna ask me is, wait a minute, we had $125 million, so where did that additional funding come from? So through the excellent work of our treasurer's office and the interest that those funds earn while they are sitting in district accounts waiting to be paid out to vendors, there has been interest money that we have been able to roll into the total budget, which has allowed us to get a little more work done there as well. And then the total payments, so cash out the door to vendors is just shy of $111 million at this point, and obviously at some point those two numbers will match. And so I will close today with our new round of projects that are, they've been kicked off since the spring, but we're getting underway in terms of contracting. So I mentioned that the district operates at a total of 112 school sites. Those 46 buildings that have already been through that facility master plan process are already fully air conditioned. I mentioned the 45 buildings that get HVAC upgrades through Operation Fix-It that will also bring that classroom air conditioning. Not part of the presentation today are there are 2 additional facilities that were funded for classroom air conditioning through the facility task force work. So just to remind anybody who may not have been part of that work at that time. So the facility task force work included the consolidation of the Columbus North International Program with the Columbus Global Academy up at the former Brookhaven building. It also includes renovations to the Brookhaven building, which are wrapping up as we speak. It included the relocation of Dominion Middle School from its previous location on Dominion Boulevard to Arcadia at the former North High School building, as well as the renovations of that building. And then the brand new World Language Middle School that is now in the renovated former Dominion building on East Dominion Boulevard. So there's a net reduction of 2 buildings in terms of not having classroom air conditioning as a result of that work. And then 3 of those 112 buildings already had central air conditioning. So those would be Linden Park, which is that early childhood center, Siebert Elementary, and Woodcrest Elementary. And so that leaves us with a net of 16 buildings that do not have central air conditioning. And so the district has been able to, through its ESSER 2 funding, or that elementary and secondary school emergency relief funding, to allocate a total of $44 million towards HVAC improvements at these 16 facilities. We were also given the opportunity, and I expect that we're going to be awarded a grant in the amount of $4 million from the City of Columbus through their Community Development Block Grant Program, or CDBG. And that money will be targeted for HVAC improvements at Westmore Middle School, as well as North Linden Elementary School. So we're looking at a total investment of approximately $48 million. And again, we're working on getting that work contracted as we speak. Work will be largely targeted for the summer of 2022. And then just to give you a quick overview of those buildings that are included in these 16 projects, at the high school level, we have Columbus Alternative High School. At the middle school, it is Johnson Park, Mifflin Middle, Westmore, the Walden building, or sometimes we refer to it as Woodward Park at Walden, Yorktown Middle School, and then at the elementary, it's Broadley, Coleraine, Como, Fairwood, Hubbard, Mays, North Linden, Valley View, West Broad, and Westgate. And that completes the presentation, and I'll be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Trevino, and really appreciate the update as well as the financial aspect, inclusive of the ESSER 2 funds. Very important for the public to know. First thing, just an administrative thing, we would like to have the report that you just gave sent to the Audit and Accountability Committees as soon as possible so that we can literally have the information that you've given us today. We do have the one-pager that lists out the over 300 projects, but the background information that you gave with the overview all the way up to the ESSER 2 funding piece, we'd like to have that as well. So thank you for that. My question is very simply this. We were not able to open up a few of our schools on time over this summer due to a change, in the weather pattern. I mean, let's just be honest with it. We would have had cooler temperatures. We would have been able to open all of our facilities essentially for that first day. At what point will we be able to say that we will have air conditioning in every classroom here in Columbus City Schools?
After the summer.
Yeah, that's a great question, Board Member Ragland. So right now we are working towards the goal of having all of these projects under contract either by the end of the year or by very early in calendar year 2022. We still have some work to do in terms of talking with our vendor community as well as our consultant who's helping guide this work. Because I'll tell you one thing that we're very concerned about is what the market can handle. We've seen some pretty unprecedented challenges in the market, both in terms of labor. I think everybody's seen that across the board, as well as supply chain. So our goal right now is to have these projects ready for school, or the projects will be ready for school for August of 2022. I have some concern whether I think we'll be able to have all classrooms air conditioned by that same deadline, but that's certainly going to be our goal.
Certainly. And my follow-up to that, are you working with the academic team, understanding that we're going to, we've had such a successful summer experience that we're coming off of this year. Is there a way that we could possibly prioritize those buildings that we know are going to need a heavy lift? Say we get the contracts in and we're able to do a lot more work over the summer. Could we prioritize, kind of excluding those buildings from the summer experience so that all the work, or at least as much work as possible, could be done there, and maybe shift some of our summer experience for many of our students to some of the other academic buildings that would have some of that summer programming? Have we gone that far in our planning, or is that something that you all have considered at this time?
Another great question, Board Member Ragland. So absolutely yes. I would say in the early days, as we were starting Operation Fix-It, it was much more challenging because there were so many non-air conditioned buildings. But I don't believe we've had any summer experience or summer school in non-air conditioned buildings that passed at least 2 years, because at this point we've got air conditioned buildings in every quadrant of the city. So we'll certainly work with the academics team to make sure we can minimize any impacts, even ones we're maybe not even thinking about right at this moment. But yes, I would not expect that we would have any conflicts with summer experience next summer as we're rolling out these projects.
And Board Member Ragland, if I can add to that as well.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Oldham.
Good afternoon. We have, for the last 3, 4, 5 years, we constantly collaborate with the summer school programming. And so that's something we constantly do to talk about what's the best facility to use. But again, we always do it with the mind of our students come first, and what's the best experience we can give them in those facilities that we have available. So yes, that's been an ongoing practice, and we'll continue to do that.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Other questions from the committee, Madam Co-Chair? Absolutely.
I have a question, and it's actually probably a little more generic than it is. Well, maybe there is an answer to this one, but it occurs to me that it might be something that we think about in terms of future audits, and maybe even, James, some sort of a board policy around this. So my thought is this, or my question is this. Do we go back and do any customer satisfaction? How is it working? Are the buildings, is the administrator, are the students, are they, experiencing improved conditions, or, and it just occurs to me, I think that organizationally, we probably don't do that as often as we should in all kinds of different contexts. And maybe that's something that we as a board think about in terms of, we check the box that it's complete. And this is well beyond Operation Fix-It. But do we go back and say, is it working? Was it well received? And so that's just a sort of a question I have in general, if we happen to do that here. And then a thought in terms of maybe that's a practice we should consider.
Board Member Becker, I'll answer, I guess, the direct question part. So no, we don't have a comprehensive program. I certainly have some, at least informal conversations, particularly with our building leaders as we're wrapping up some of our projects. But I would say we have definitely had some discussion around that in terms of facility master plan work. Mm-hmm. If sometimes these Operation Fix-It projects are not, so obviously air conditioning is a big one in terms of what our users experience. But I think the facility master plan process is probably the bigger one in terms of, can we measure any difference, whether that be in performance, attendance, wellness, happiness, in terms of what folks experience going from a legacy building into a facility master plan building. I think it's a good question.
like, what are the outcomes?
Right. Other questions from the committee? Mr. Vajan, I don't see you on screen, and so I just want to make sure that we, if you have any questions, that you are given the opportunity to speak, if you have some.
No questions at this time, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so hearing no other questions from the committee, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Trevino, Mr. Oldham, and your team for this update and the information that was given to us today. With that, Madam Auditor, we're going to move on to item number 5 in our agenda, legal and ethical compliance. Madam Auditor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. This is part of the calendar activity that we want to bring to the committee at least once a year. It consists of update from our general counsel on any type of monitoring or compliance issues that he deems appropriate to bring to the committee, which will be followed by an update from Kevin Sandkowski with the Office of Internal Audit on an update on the types of activity that we have seen as far as whistleblower fraud, waste, and abuse complaints that have come through on the hotline. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Barnes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Barnes. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So what I'm going to be talking about are a number of things. One are the district training, compliance, and public records. As you know, the district, our human resources department, uses Public School Works, the Public School Works program for certain online training for all employees. There are certain training, certain courses or modules are required of all employees, and others are dependent on the responsibilities of the employees. As you can see on the slide, there was a little disparity between school year 2019-2020 versus 2020-2021. As you can see on the right-hand side, there was a module or course completion rate for all district employees of 88% of the courses, 90% for school administrators, school building administrators, and 85% for central office administrators. And in large part, of course, that was due to the pandemic. Now, for these modules, again, certain are required for all employees. The modules or courses can range anywhere from 15 to a full 60 minutes, a full hour. And there's a test at the end of each module, and the individual or employee taking the course or module must answer correctly at least 80% of the test questions. If the employee does not answer 80% of those test questions correctly, he or she has to take the course again. So on the screen now are the same numbers, but it talks about the number of courses or modules that were actually taken. For example, all employees, again, I mentioned that there was an 88% completion rate. What that means is that employees enrolled in 85,622 courses. Of the employees we have, there was an enrollment of 85,000 plus. Of those who enrolled, 75,000 courses were completed, and 10,000 were not completed, therefore bringing us to the 88%. Okay, I think Okay. The district is in full compliance with the FERPA law, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. Under this act, we must have written parent or guardian written consent before the district or an employee may disclose any personally identifiable information from the student's education records. And we get requests for that information on a fairly regular basis. Here in the Office of General Counsel, we get those requests via subpoena from attorneys, via court request, via law enforcement, via federal and state agencies. Many of them do come at the building level. And when those do come through the building level, those staff and administrators are instructed to immediately contact my office, because when they get those requests, before we release any information, we do contact the parent or guardian to advise them that that request has come in. There may be a situation, and the reason we do that is because we want to give the parent or guardian an opportunity to contest that release with the agency or individual who's requested that information. And the agency or court may otherwise be entitled to that information, but we still give the parent and guardian an opportunity to weigh in. Part of what we do in the Office of General Counsel is, again, compliance. And we have a compliance officer, and we investigate and monitor whether the district is complying with applicable anti-discrimination laws. The compliance office also investigates allegations of discrimination and harassment. We recently hired a compliance officer. Our previous compliance officer resigned, and we now have a new compliance officer, Aisha Powell, who started in July of this year. And we also oversee Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. My screen is not working. Okay. Did my screen just go blank?
Yes. Now it's back.
Okay. So we also conduct training for administrators and employees regarding anti-discrimination laws. And we often get questions regarding clarification and interpretation of anti-discrimination laws in regard to district policy and procedure. I spoke earlier about public school works, and there are a number of anti-discrimination offerings that can be had online. And I've listed a few of those, anywhere from sexual harassment to disability rights, to implicit bias and cultural responsiveness, and basically having a discrimination-free workplace. And here on this slide, you see listed board policies that relate to anti-discrimination and the prohibition against discrimination. My office is also responsible for overseeing public records requests. And you may recall the last school year, the Auditor of State initiated a STARS rating program, and it applies to all public entities, including school districts. And the school district and other public employees are required to advised the Auditor of State of its public records program. How does it work? Do you have systems in place? How do you respond? And they require public agencies to submit information relating to even redactions of public records, or why a public record a public records request was denied. Fortunately, we did get a pretty good rating from the Auditor of State's office. The best rating you can get is a 5. We did receive a 3, and that was without having a public records officer. We now do have a public records officer who began in March of this year, and we have seen a significant increase in the response time from the time a public records request comes in until the time we can respond to that request. So our anticipation for the next rating period is that we're going to get to a 5-star rating, or as close to that as possible. And wow, I think I made my 10 minutes.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Barnes. I've got a couple of questions. We could start with the public records. I think the main thing that we hear from our constituents is the speed with which we respond to public records requests. And oftentimes, what has been articulated to me from the administration is sometimes when folks are asking for specific public records, we may not have that information readily available in the format with which they are asking for it. Can you talk a little bit about public records requests for information and what we are required to respond to, so that the public can understand? We may not have the specific spreadsheet that you are asking us to give to you, and sometimes when we're required to do some things, it may take us a little bit of time in order to gather the information. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Under public records law, we are, and any public agency is required to disclose documents that we have in existence. Under public records law, there's no requirement to create a document. If we do have data that may be susceptible or capable of being put into a spreadsheet, public records law does not require a public agency to create a spreadsheet, because that's a creation of a document. If we do have the raw data that will satisfy a public records request, then we are required to provide that data, but not necessarily in the format that the requester is requesting.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. And then my next question concerns FERPA in the part of your presentation that talked about the records for young people. And I want to speak specifically about a situation where an unfortunate event happened with one of our students that ended up making national news. And unfortunately, a bit of their academic information was given, I'm not sure if that was, well, I'm pretty sure that it wasn't officially given by the district, but it was given and was being used in news stories about our student. A part of what I would hope that we would be able to do, specifically when we have situations where our children may be involved in newsworthy events, could we immediately suspend their student data accounts so that there are a limited number of district employees that have access to that account for the purpose of executing, your guidance on FERPA and how that information gets out. From my understanding, we've got a situation now where there are quite a few folks that may have clearance to have some information on many or all of our students. But is there a way that we could essentially tighten that process up so that in the event we see something unfortunate that may be happening for our young people that, I would obviously say the superintendent and yourself, obviously, and maybe some other pertinent folks that would be decision makers. I can't, think of who they would be right now, but is there a way that we can do that? Oftentimes, what we see from the public, and particularly with news sources, a lot of the information around a child's schooling can be used to frame a narrative about the child in some situations, particularly when those situations happen to be unfortunate. And I want us to make sure that we are doing everything in our power to protect our students in the case that this may happen. And so can you talk a little bit about what we may want to try and look at given those situations, and if there are some holes in our process to date, your advice on maybe what we can do to close some of those gaps up, please, sir.
Yes, thank you, Board Member Ragland. I'm not familiar with the particular situation that you're referencing. In regards to tightening up the process, it is something that we can look at. It is a bit difficult because of the number of educators or other individuals within the district may need access to a student's information in furtherance of that student's education. And we can certainly look at it, but at this point, any and it's not just the Columbus City Schools, it's any school district. There are many individuals within a school district that has access to a number of students' information. And that information needs to be accessible at any given time when something happens, even in the event that a situation in which our students are involved, someone may need to get into that student's information that I or Superintendent Dixon, Dr. Dixon, may not be aware of, because I may be the last one who knows about the situation. Dr. Dixon may not know about the situation. So it's real difficult to simply hit a button and say no further access, but it is something that we can look into to try to tighten it up.
Thank you, sir. Other questions from committee members? Mr. Grant?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Thanks. Yes, ma'am. Madam Co-Chair.
I just want to, or maybe we can talk about this after we hear the second part of the hotline, but I just wanted to address compliance more generally. But why don't we do that after the hotline?
Yes, ma'am. You're more than welcome to go now.
No. I think it makes more sense now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barnes.
Chairman Ragland.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Vajan.
One question, Mr. Barnes, as we look at the module completion rates, is there a certain percentage that the district shoots for or aims for?
Or has to, actually.
Yes, we shoot for 100%. And their HR does follow up with those employees who do not complete, And we do have, when I looked at it, there are a number of employees who, again, may not pass at the initial time, and they're going back in to complete it. But HR, our Human Resources Department, is monitoring that and is reaching out to employees who do not complete it. Again, this past year, the numbers were a little down because of the pandemic, but the expectation is, again, that all employees complete all of the required modules that they're assigned.
As somebody that is responsible for security user awareness training, I can appreciate the level of effort that takes to follow up with folks. And I guess my question would be, do you feel you're getting enough support from all the various teams to make sure the training gets achieved? I know it's hard to get to truly 100%, and that would be, I guess, the question. Do you feel you're supported enough to get to that from other teams?
Well, that's more of a question for our Human Resources Department. Okay. But I can certainly inquire.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions.
Thank you, Mr. Vassar. Madam Auditor.
Thank you. Now, Kevin Stankowski is going to go over the activity with the district's hotline. And it's a one-page document that looks like this for anyone who's following.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm also going to go ahead and share my screen and see, can folks see that?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Excellent. Good afternoon, all. I am going to just give you a brief report on our fraud, waste, and abuse reporting activity for fiscal year 2021. The Board of Education has directed the Office of Internal Audit to manage and maintain an anonymous reporting for the purpose of reporting fraud, waste, and abuse by employees or really anyone who wishes to report anything to the district. We do that through a third-party service provider that manages and responds or takes questions, as well as provides a platform for completing an online form. And then that information is relayed to the Office of Internal Audit for evaluation and disposition. So while it is maintained or managed by and received by an external party or third-party service provider, all of the reports that are made via that process do make their way to us for evaluation and ultimately decision-making and disposition of those items. A couple of things I'm just going to point out to you as far as the information on the infograph. The starting off with just the number for fiscal year 2021, you'll see that we're at 32, and that looks like it's a dramatic decrease from the prior year, but you will see from the trend that it is pretty much in line with historical information. If folks remember from last year, this is a bit of an anomaly, 2020, in that we did have one reporter who I think in and of themselves submitted, I believe it was 23 reports. So that kind of skews that a little bit. So this number of 32 is really more in line with what our historical trend has been. Something else to point out as far as trending goes is this area right here, the web and hotline. This is the third-party service provider for us that receives that. Like I said, they have a platform in which folks can go out and fill out an online form, submitting information, and that would be the 23 reports. And then we have the 9 reports that were just straight via hotline. They have professional individuals that manage that hotline number that we provide for employees. Someone picks that up, takes information, and then submits a report to us. This trend is any OIA phone number or OI phone or letter or email or walk-in. This is a trend we've seen probably for like the last 3 years, mostly going more towards our online platform and hotline service provider rather than contacting OIA directly. Super surprising. This gives folks a great opportunity to be anonymous. We do our best if you call us to try to preserve folks' anonymity. However, that's not always able to be done. This offers them that ability, and so I think the fact that this is really the only way we are receiving most of our reports now is not terribly surprising. As far as further borne out from this little statistic, right, as far as those folks that are anonymous and those folks that are not anonymous, I think you're going to drive better response or better information. Perhaps for folks if you allow them to do it anonymously, and most of the folks take advantage of that. As far as percentage wise, this percentage is very consistent with last year. I think this is about 84%. Last year it was, I think, around 82% that were reported anonymously. And then finally, the only other point I want to point out is into the departments that are for which we receive most of the reports. For 4 of the 5 of these departments that are listed here, they are the same 4 departments that were listed last year, just in some different semblance of order. Pointing out a couple of things. Transformation and leadership, that department includes all of our school buildings. You know, and as Alex pointed out earlier, that's 100+ buildings, so it's not terribly unusual or necessarily unexpected that you have a greater opportunity to have more reports when you have more folks that are attached to those buildings. Excuse me. So if someone makes a complaint or someone submits a report that involves a school, it gets attached to the Department of Transformation and Leadership. So the fact that they're at 12, and I think last year they were the department that had the most as well. And so, but again, that's not terribly surprising given that they have the greatest number of people in their department when you consider the access after. The other thing to point out is business and operations. Last year, we only had 4 related to business and operations. This year, it jumped up to 11. A little insight into these items so that don't necessarily get super worried that there's a bunch of issues in business and operations. Of these 11 reports that we've gotten for FY 2021, I did a little bit of preliminary inquiry work related to 2 of those and found the unsubstantiated. And then in the case of the other 9, the nature of the report was such that the OIA didn't feel OIA needed any additional action on the matter. However, we did refer them to the management of business and operations, just so that they're aware of it. And that's a pretty standard thing for us, is that even if we're not going to take action on something, let's say it's perhaps a management related issue, we think it's important to at least forward it to them so that they are aware of it, and then they can consider it affects their operations or they need to take any action on those reports. But in the case of all 11 of those, like I mentioned, 2 of those we determined to be unsubstantiated through some preliminary inquiry, and then the other 9 were simply matters that we referred to management for their consideration. So those were really the significant things I wanted to point out to everyone. But I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
Seeing none, thank you, sir. Mr. Vajon, do you have any questions regarding the report?
No questions here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm sure I saw, oh, never mind, I see it now. No action, frivolous, okay, never mind. That was what I was looking for. I saw it earlier and then I couldn't find it again.
All right, Madam Auditor, with that, thank you, sir. With that, Madam Auditor, we're going to move to Office of Internal Audit report. Today on the docket, all we have is the internal audit activity and dashboard report.
Okay.
Floor is yours, ma'am.
Great, thank you. Internal Audit Director Kevin O'Connor is going to walk you through the dashboard report. It'll cover the activity from the last time we met up until July 31st. So, Mr. O'Connor.
Thank you, Carolyn. Just a couple things on this dashboard. This will be the last dashboard that includes fiscal year 21 audit plan information, and you'll see why here in a minute. On page 3, we have the bar chart that shows changes from last month, which is basically the orange column represents all the reports that are issued. And all 10 were reported and issued out of our office. We do have 2 showing in the yellow column, and those are the Council of Great City Schools HR and Transportation reviews. They are special projects that we are working with management on. Pages 5 and 6 of the dashboard, same information, just a little different format. Pages 7, 8, and 9, again, that's our Chevron format. So again, just everybody has different ways they like to see things. So we do that in different ways. Slide 10, no additions, deletions, or adjustments to the audit plan. And like I said, everything was accomplished. Those 2 projects are still in progress, and we'll pick those up on the next fiscal year 22 audit plan. One thing you don't see in this dashboard that we've reported previously is outstanding issue recommendations update. We've had a few hiccups in getting the information into teammate as far as the status of items that have been corrected. For instance, Stan has done a lot of great work in his office correcting some of the recommendations that were outstanding. We thought all we had to do was have the auditor click on it, put in implemented not verified, and then I could go in and close that as confirmation that I verified the work was completed appropriately. It's a little more complicated than that. There's a certain sequence of events we have to follow and adhere to. So rather than show that and not give credit to management for the work that they've done, we decided that we would not show that this month and pick that up in the October A&A meeting. Any questions on that? Let me know if I'm going too fast. The next item is slide 12. And that is our professional education, different webinars and stuff attended by the staff to increase our competence in the office. And when we do come back, we do share that with everybody who didn't attend, so we all gain that knowledge. Slide 13 are our non-audit activities. So for advising services and district group participation, we do have a representative of our office on the FMP committee to work with them. We also have advised in the state and federal programs dealing with pandemic funds, Chromebook accountability, and the Medicaid reimbursement process. So I appreciate them reaching out to us to include us in those groups that are talking about those things. Slide 15, just a couple things on strategy updates. We're in the process of updating the OIA procedure manual. We've developed an OIA staff competency progression framework. So that's going through its final reviews and will be presented to the committee at an upcoming meeting. And we've also done the fiscal year 21 OIA performance metrics, how we're measuring ourselves against established benchmarks. And the last slide is 17, and that's just our budget and our TO going forward in fiscal year 22. So I'll be glad to take any questions if anybody has any. And Dr. James, welcome to the school district. Looking forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor.
Does anybody have any questions?
All right. Any questions for Mr. O'Connor? All right, seeing none. Yes, sir. Mr. Vajon?
No questions here.
Okay. No questions here. Okay, seeing none. It seems as if we have concluded our business for today for the Audit and Accountability Committee. I'd like to thank committee members for their service, as well as all of those that have given presentation to us today. Dr. Dixon, your team, Mr. Behort, your team, and always the Office of Internal Audit for a very thorough meeting today. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Auditor, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Daniel,
Yes.
Chair Ragland,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Beverly.
Yes.
Motion carried.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.